You ever feel like you're doing everything right, checking all the boxes, yet you're utterly, profoundly drained? Like you've got endless information, infinite entertainment, constant connection, all at your fingertips. And somehow, you're more unmotivated than ever before. This isn't just about feeling a bit tired. This is a creeping apathy, a soul-deep weariness that millions are experiencing. We often label it as laziness, a lack of grit, or even a moral failing. But what if that's not just wrong, but dangerously misleading? What if the real problem isn't a lack of motivation, but an overload of stimuli? A relentless bombardment that's actually suffocating any chance of genuine connection with ourselves. This isn't some fringe theory. It's a powerful idea echoing from contemporary thought, one that resonates eerily with the profound insights of a man who survived the unimaginable, Viktor Frankl. Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, endured the absolute hell of Nazi concentration camps. He watched his entire family perish in Auschwitz. He lived for years amidst death, starvation, and unimaginable brutality. Yet somehow, he discovered an inner strength that didn't come from pleasure or even the hope of freedom. It came from something far deeper, meaning. For Frankl, humans are primarily driven by a will to meaning. It's not comfort, pleasure, or even success that truly keeps us going. It's our ability to find significance in our existence, even, and especially, in the most extreme, crushing circumstances. Now, let that sink in. This idea casts a disturbing light on the reality we're living in today. If genuine motivation springs from meaning, what happens when an entire society is relentlessly conditioned to chase only pleasure and endless distraction? What happens to your psyche when every quiet moment is instantly filled with a video? Every pause is hijacked by a notification? Every silence is drowned out by external noise? It's a question that demands an answer, and it changes everything. This video isn't just another discussion. It's a radical challenge. Maybe you aren't unmotivated. Maybe you're just utterly exhausted. Exhausted from chasing goals that aren't truly yours, from mindlessly consuming content that adds nothing, from living in a constant high-alert state of distraction. In this scenario, your lack of motivation isn't a defect, it's a symptom. It's a flashing red warning light that something far more essential has been lost amidst the noise. Oh baby. Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to dissect today. How modern hyperstimulation is relentlessly eroding our capacity to find real purpose. How silence, emptiness, and even discomfort, things we desperately avoid today, are actually forgotten pathways to rediscovering your true self. And how the ideas of a man who survived hell itself can still guide us through the technological and existential chaos of our present world. Papas. Hello. Buddy. And base. If you've ever felt lost, drained, paralyzed by inaction even when you know what needs to be done, then this video is for you. Because maybe your soul isn't defeated. Maybe it's just trying to tell you in its own profound way that it's finally time to come home. Yeah, let's be honest, your brain was never designed for this. For millennia, our minds evolved within natural cycles of activity and rest, focus and dispersion, presence and introspection. But in the last few decades, something fundamentally shifted. We've plunged headfirst into an era of hyperstimulation, where every microsecond of silence is filled with notifications, blinding screens, artificial sounds, and an endless avalanche of information battling for your attention. No, what was once idle time, moments to simply reflect, feel, or just be, is now scorned as wasted time. Technology, instead of being a tool for consciousness, has often morphed into an anesthetic for the soul. We scroll through infinite feeds, not because we care about the content, but because we physically can't tolerate the silence. We binge watch, consume short videos, and devour news at a frantic pace, not to inform or grow, but to escape. Escape from what? From ourselves. This constant escape comes with profound consequences. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to motivation and pleasure, is constantly being hijacked by these shallow, artificial digital spikes. The more we expose ourselves to them, the more desensitized we become to life's natural stimuli. Things that once truly excited us, a deep conversation, a creative project, a quiet walk in nature, now feel tedious, even boring. Our brains, addicted to novelty and instant gratification, are actually unlearning how to value the deep, the slow, the truly significant. This, my friends, is the insidious, invisible root of modern demotivation. Easy pleasure kills real motivation. When every single opportunity for a pause is instantly filled with a digital reward, we lose our capacity for deep desire. Yes. It's not that you don't want to change your life. It's that your own reward system is being ruthlessly hijacked by stimuli that merely mimic genuine achievement. And this leads us to an even more unsettling reflection. If we're so busy fleeing boredom, aren't we also fleeing the questions that truly matter? Because it's in that silence, in the glorious absence of external stimulus, that the great questions of existence finally emerge. As Viktor Frankl warned, reflecting on our suffering and modern existential emptiness, modern man has less and less time to reflect, less courage to make decisions, and less freedom to find his own meaning. Yet, it's precisely this ability to find personal meaning that sustains your dignity as a human being. In our next segment, we're going to plunge deeper into the devastating consequences of this psychic exhaustion, this relentless overstimulation. Why are our minds so utterly drained, and what are we truly losing when we lose the ability to reflect? Before we continue, if this content is hitting home, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us keep these vital conversations going. Thank you. So, what actually happens to a mind that never rests? That never goes silent? That's never truly allowed to just be, without stimulation, without expectation, without constant distraction? The answer is stark, and frankly, devastating. It fragments. An overloaded mind doesn't think. It merely reacts. It doesn't contemplate. It consumes. And over time, this mind loses its most precious ability, the power to reflect. Reflection is so much more than just thinking. It's stepping back, observing your own thoughts. It's allowing ideas to settle, emotions to take shape, values to quietly reveal themselves. It's in this sacred internal space of silence and contemplation that we forge our identity, process our experiences, and connect with what truly matters. But when every microsecond is invaded by a new stimulus, this vital space is obliterated. Nice. Dim. Dalbo. Tame Wole. Anone. Dosoidendob. Da. In its place, an anxious, frantic mind emerges, utterly incapable of sustaining a deep line of reasoning, let alone an authentic existential search for meaning. The tired mind doesn't seek clarity, it seeks relief. And that, my friends, is where the real danger lies. Because a mind that only seeks relief becomes utterly dependent on anything that promises a quick escape. Social media, food, pornography, shopping, even excessive productivity. Anything to distract from immediate discomfort, no matter the long-term cost to your well-being. This is the insidious trap of thought. Excessive stimulation prevents us from thinking deeply, and the absence of deep thought condemns us to endlessly repeat the same hollow, unsatisfying patterns, day after relentless day. Furthermore, the exhausted mind loses touch with itself. Without moments of genuine introspection, we no longer recognize our true emotions. We don't know what we truly want. We can't even identify what genuinely moves us. We become utterly at the mercy of external impulses, living according to what's suggested, advertised, or imposed upon us, never from what genuinely emerges from within. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard famously said, "The greatest form of despair is to choose to be something other than oneself." But how can you choose to be yourself if you never, ever find the time to find yourself? Precious. The mind that doesn't reflect is a mind alienated from its own essence. And it is precisely this chilling state of alienation that fuels what we label as demotivation. Because when we aren't connected with our deepest emotions, our core values, our most authentic goals, every single action feels forced, artificial, even meaningless. Motivation doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's a byproduct of inner connection. And that connection demands silence. It demands space. It demands pause. As Viktor Frankl so eloquently stated, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. But what happens when that crucial space is utterly destroyed? When there's no longer an interval between stimulus and response? When there's no more choice, only automatic reaction? We become slaves to the noise. In the next part, we'll delve even deeper into this devastating consequence. How demotivation, in this hyper-stimulated era, is not a sign of personal failure, but the muffled, urgent cry of a soul desperately yearning for meaning. It's a common refrain, isn't it? I feel stuck. I can't get anything done. It's like something is sucking the life right out of me. These aren't just casual complaints. They are profoundly accurate diagnoses of a soul in distress. In a world obsessed with productivity, performance, and crushing it, feeling unmotivated is often shamefully treated as a personal failure. As if you're broken. As if something essential is missing inside you. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if this debilitating apathy is actually a symptom of a sick system? A soul suffocated by relentless superficiality. In this context, your demotivation isn't a weakness. It's a protest. It's the muffled, desperate cry of a psyche that simply cannot chase after empty goals. manufactured targets or fleeting stimuli that promise happiness but deliver nothing but emptiness. The annuity. It's the silent collapse of someone who has spent far too long living outward without ever daring to look inward. It's not that you don't want to act. It's that you're utterly exhausted from acting without purpose. It's not that you lack strength. It's that you've already drained your energy trying to adapt to a life that doesn't authentically represent who you are. Yama. This symptom of demotivation reveals a painful, undeniable truth. We are trying to force movement where there is a gaping lack of meaning. We are attempting to rekindle a flame using false, synthetic fuel, and your soul knows. It feels when something is shallow, when there's no truth, when you're merely playing a role. And that's when the paralysis sets in. Not because you're incapable, but because you're fundamentally disconnected from what truly moves you. Yes! Imagine a delicate plant, placed in barren soil, exposed to artificial light, 24/7. Can it grow? Maybe. But it will be weak, pale, profoundly disconnected from its natural rhythm. This is exactly what happens to the human mind when it lives immersed in constant stimulation, in incessant demands without the vital time to root itself in its own being. Demotivation, in this profound sense, is your body screaming, "We need to stop." It's your soul whispering, "We need to go home." Frankl, with surgical precision, warned us about this. When a person can't find deep meaning in life, they distract themselves with pleasures. But distraction isn't fulfillment. And when the inevitable emptiness returns, because it always does, we realize the problem wasn't a lack of movement, but a profound lack of direction. What we desperately need isn't more productivity. It's reconnection. And that's where we tap into the groundbreaking wisdom of Viktor Frankl, who survived hell itself to teach us something many of us desperately forget. Real motivation doesn't arise from comfort. It arises from purpose. In the next part, we'll dive deep into the heart of his philosophy and uncover why the search for meaning is the only true antidote to the existential void of the modern era. By the way, if what you're hearing truly resonates with you, you'll find immense value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconsciouses gives you a 30-day path to apply them directly to your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment below. They're designed to help you on this journey of self-discovery and meaning. In one of the darkest, most unfathomable periods of human history, Viktor Frankl endured the unspeakable horrors of Auschwitz, Dachau, and other Nazi concentration camps. He bore witness to humanity at its absolute worst. He saw men stripped of everything: family, dignity, identity. He watched bodies become mere numbers, lives reduced to bare survival. Yet, even in that abyss of hunger, pain, and omnipresent death, he made an astonishing discovery. Somehow, some individuals managed to keep the spark of life alive, not because they were physically stronger or luckier, but for a far more profound reason. They still had a why. Frankl realized that those who clung to a clear sense of purpose, something or someone to live for, a mission greater than themselves, were the ones who resisted psychological collapse. He named this the will to meaning, and it became the very heart of his revolutionary psychotherapeutic approach, logotherapy. Nice. Daria. Nay. For Frankl, humans aren't primarily motivated by the pursuit of pleasure, as Freud suggested, nor solely by the pursuit of power, as Adler theorized. The deepest, most fundamental drive of human beings is to find meaning in their existence. When that meaning is absent, an existential emptiness creeps in, the very same emptiness we today desperately camouflage with endless distractions, toxic productivity, and incessant stimuli. New way. The most awe-inspiring aspect of Frankl's work is his radical realization that meaning can be found even in pain. Even in extreme suffering, there is still room for dignity, for choice, for transcendence. Life never ceases to have meaning, he declared. Even in the face of inevitable suffering. This completely shatters the modern logic that tells us we need to feel good to produce, that we need to be motivated to act. Frankl flips that script entirely. Often it is by acting with meaning that we rediscover our strength. Purpose isn't some luxury. It's a fundamental psychological need, as essential as air. This understanding changes absolutely everything. If motivation genuinely depends on meaning, then its absence isn't a sign of weakness. It's a clear signal of disconnection from what truly matters. And this disconnection is magnified exponentially when we live for hollow goals, status, social validation, fleeting numbers, superficial appearances. Frankl invites us to ask a profoundly different question. What am I living for? Not how can I have more energy, but why is it genuinely worth getting out of bed? Not how can I be more productive, but what truly moves my soul? In his immortal words, man is capable of enduring anyhow, as long as he has a why. And that why doesn't need to be some grand, world-changing epic. It can be a child, a personal mission, an ideal, even a simple task, but lived with authenticity. The essential thing is that it is genuine, that it emanates from within, that it connects you to something greater than the fleeting immediacy of the now. But how do we possibly rediscover this profound meaning in a life utterly overwhelmed by noise, distractions, and crushing pressures? How do we carve out space for this vital reconnection to even begin? In the next part, we'll explore exactly that. The transformative power of silence, pause, and even discomfort as the forgotten gateways to a life overflowing with purpose and presence. In a society where the absence of stimulation is practically viewed as a threat, talking about silence like heresy, silence confronts us. It forces us to finally listen to everything we've been desperately avoiding. Our most chaotic thoughts, our most repressed pains, our most uncomfortable questions. And yet, it is precisely in this seemingly hostile territory that the ultimate key to reconnecting with what truly matters resides. Modern humans have been conditioned to absolutely fear emptiness. We can't stand waiting. We can't tolerate being alone. We simply don't know how to just be. But this emptiness, this glorious space, unfilled by external stimuli, isn't a mistake. It's an urgent invitation. An invitation to pause, to observe, to reorganize your entire internal landscape. Because it's only when the relentless noise ceases that we can truly hear the whisper of consciousness. It's only when the superficial excess dissolves that the essential can finally emerge. Frankl stated that life demands a response from each of us. But to respond authentically, one must first listen. And listening in this saturated, screaming world, has become a forgotten, almost subversive art. We are so accustomed to the constant flow of information, opinions, and external expectations that we've become utterly deaf to our own inner call. Nyaun, nyaun, these amne, andaun, beshu, alfin, panin, ben. This inner call isn't loud or spectacular. It's subtle, a soft whisper in the sacred gap between one thought and another. And it can only be captured when we consciously create space for silence. Turning off the phone, refusing another non-essential task, courageously saying no to what isn't truly important. All of this might feel profoundly uncomfortable at first. But this discomfort, it's not the enemy. It's a sign that you are stepping out of the automatic, out of the matrix. It's a harbinger of profound clarity. Because before motivation comes silence. Before aligned action comes honest listening. And before purpose comes the courageous confrontation with everything you've been avoiding. And yes, silence can be deeply disconcerting. It can expose raw insecurities, gnawing doubts, lingering resentments. But it can also, crucially, reveal forgotten values, authentic desires, and exciting, unexplored directions. The discomfort we feel in the absence of stimulation isn't the enemy at all. It's the powerful beginning of the reintegration process. It's in this sacred space that your soul, previously stifled by the roaring noise of the world, begins to whisper profound truths you've ignored for far too long. As Viktor Frankl so powerfully wrote, each of us has to find in his own life a unique meaning, a mission that is his. No life can be replaced. No destiny can be repeated. Each one irreplaceable. But how can you possibly hear this mission? How can you recognize this call if you never truly stop to listen? In our final crucial part, we'll address the most essential step. How do you transform this silence into meaningful action? How do you emerge from apathy, not through superficial external stimulation, but through the authentic expression of an undeniable internal purpose? Because true motivation truly arises when we stop fleeing and finally choose to live with intentionality, with purpose. There comes a moment, doesn't there? A breaking point. A moment when you simply cannot continue living on autopilot. A moment when the emptiness screams louder than any distraction. When the fatigue can't be numbed by another video, another scroll, another pointless task. This is the moment of rupture. And paradoxically, it is also your true starting point. Because it's when we stop frantically seeking outside what can only be found within, that we finally begin to move in the right direction. True motivation isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with easy promises or slick, ready-made formulas. It doesn't spring from a desire to please others, to meet external goals, or to slavishly follow imposed standards. It emerges when you finally make contact with what is non-negotiable within you. Your deepest values, your forgotten dreams, your rawest, most authentic truth. It's a silent, but absolutely relentless force. A spark that, once ignited, completely transforms the way you move and act in the world. And here's the best part. This doesn't require heroism. It doesn't demand grand gestures or radical overnight changes. It begins with the simple, with turning off the noise, with an honest, unflinching look at yourself, with a small, courageous act of saying, "This no longer serves me," with the deliberate movement of going against the chaos, of stopping the frantic running in all directions and beginning to walk inward. You know, netto, because it's in that internal space that purpose finally takes shape. It's there that you begin to act not out of obligation, but out of profound meaning, not out of impulse, but by deliberate choice, not to escape, but to courageously express who you truly are. Your demotivation isn't a flaw. It's an urgent invitation, a profound call to stop living on the surface and to dive deep into what is truly real. It's a signal that it's time to reconnect, to embrace silence, to reclaim your own presence, to finally act with intention. Viktor Frankl survived hell on earth and emerged with an utterly powerful, undeniable truth. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. You still possess that freedom, even now, and you can use it to interrupt this relentless cycle of superficiality and begin a brand new narrative for your life. One where you are no longer at the mercy of fleeting stimuli, but powerfully guided by your own authentic purpose. If this message resonated deeply with you, tell us in the comments below. What will you choose to leave behind? Starting today, what noise will you silence to finally hear your own authentic voice? And if this made profound sense, keep watching. The next video on our channel is also incredibly important. It might be exactly what you need to hear right now, because the path to a purposeful life doesn't end here. It's only just beginning.